again. My name is Roland Zimmerman, and I'm here today to talk to you about sweet Riesling wines and Riesling for beginners. Sit tight, grab a glass, and we'll get started. Some of the questions we frequently get about Riesling in our retail setting is, where is it grown? Why does Riesling tend to be sweet? Can Rieslings be dry? Why do some Rieslings taste like Petrol? And what to pair it with? That's always a fan favorite. So, getting started, where does it grow? Well, Riesling is actually a very, very versatile variety. It grows in a lot of different climates. However, there is a limit in terms of its geography and where it grows. It is best suited to grow in cooler climates where the sun is not quite as intense as it is, say, in southern parts of the world. And by southern parts, I mean parts such as Florida, or if you're in Europe, such as southern Spain or southern Italy. There is, of course, the exception. You can compensate for the extreme heat of the southern climates if you go high enough in altitude, which is why some Riesling from Chile or Argentina are very, very flavorful because they're grown at extremely high altitudes versus where they are grown in Europe. Here in Canada, we grow Riesling actually all across Canada, believe it or not. It is one of the varieties that is well suited to our climate because it is very cold tolerant. It is a very hardy variety, and it is also very fruitful, meaning that it will produce grapes almost no matter what you throw at it. And you can pretty much put it in the most barren, desolate soil, and it will still grow something, maybe not exceptional, but it will grow. So anywhere from the coast of BC's all the way through Alberta, Saskatchewan, there's even plantings in Manitoba, down through Ontario, where the largest plantings are, Quebec, as well as the maritime provinces, even as far north as Newfoundland, have actual commercially viable vineyards of Riesling growing in Canada. So to answer that question, it's best grown wherever it's cold. Hopefully that covers that pretty clearly. Next question we get, and this is one of my favorites, is why does Riesling tend to be sweet? Well, it's one of the characteristics of the variety. Riesling itself is actually a very acidic grape variety. And what I mean by that is it tastes very sour when it doesn't have a little bit of sweetness to balance it out. This is, of course, dependent on how the winemaker made the wine and where the vines themselves grew. The more barren, rocky, and poor the soil is, the better suited it is towards Rieslings that tend to be more acidic. If the Riesling is planted in a very fertile soil, it can be a very sweet or it can be a very soft Riesling. And as I mentioned earlier, the purview or the discretion of the winemaker when the grapes are actually harvested in which style of Riesling he wants to produce. This could be dictated by the level of ripeness of the crop in that particular year, the level of acidity in that particular year, but also the winemaker's personal preference. It may be a case that the customers really like a well-balanced Riesling with a nice crisp acidity and a little bit of sweetness just to round it out. And truth be told, that's actually how we produce our Queen Riesling, which is one of our best loved and well-liked Rieslings that we sell here in Ontario. Now the other question we have is, can Rieslings be dry? And I have to answer this against the sweet Riesling because yes, it's very exciting. Rieslings can indeed be dry. Again, the reason most winemakers and the general public don't like dry Rieslings is because they do tend to be very crisp in their acidity. And by crisp, the term means that it very, very much puckers your mouth, like, okay, wow, that's really tart. But that's the beauty of Riesling. Beauty in this case is the more sour it is, the better it can pair with certain foods. I'll get to that in a minute. But basically that acidity helps balance out the flavors and the aromas that you wouldn't normally get in other varieties. This is why Rieslings tend to have very much a citrus note to them, very much lime and lemon flavors because of that natural inherent acidity. This isn't an added flavor. This is naturally occurring in the vines and is very specific to where they were actually grown. This leads into the next question is, why do some Rieslings taste like Petrol? Well, because of the acidity that I was describing earlier, Riesling actually has an added level of oxidation protection. Check out some of our earlier videos where I discuss that in a little bit greater detail. But basically, the acidity helps protect the Riesling wine against oxidizing or aging too quickly. And why that's important is because it means you can actually put a Riesling down for an extended period of time, similar to how you would do with red wines. And this is where that petrol note develops. What happens is that there's miniature oxidations occurring, or miniature chemical changes occurring in the actual wine as it's aging. And this in Riesling produces a petrol note. Now, you could argue that who the heck wants to taste a wine that tastes like gasoline? And I get it. But truthfully, the experience is world-changing. It's unbelievable how unique that flavor is, and you would never believe it's actually a wine if you didn't know and somebody didn't show you the specific bottle. In fact, some of the most expensive Rieslings in the world have to have this particular petrol note in them, or otherwise they're not considered to be good quality wines. Well, hey, that's the way it is with Riesling specifically. So, what to pair it with? Riesling is one of my favorite wines, in case you haven't noticed, that I love to pair with foods. And I've tried just about everything. My personal 5 favorite for the best food pairings are spicier dishes. A nice curry is delicious with that crisp acidity of the Riesling, especially if it has a little bit of sweetness to counterbalance the heat of the curry. Or if you're not a big fan of curries, chicken dishes. Just about any chicken dish I've ever tried pairs well with Riesling. In fact, to this day, I haven't really found one that doesn't pair well. Now, admittedly, I have a bit of a bias because I love Riesling, but truthfully, I have cooked a number of different dishes with chicken that have paired exceptionally well with that crisp acidity I was mentioning earlier in the Riesling. Another one favorite, and this one is a really close second next to the chicken, is white fish. Now, white fish could be any type of fish as long as the flesh is white. And that's the beauty of the white fish. It's very neutral. It's a very usually easy to adapt flavor profile. And the Riesling with the acidity pairs well with the fish. They complement each other so well that you'll get a abundance of flavor on the palate. It's mind-blowing. Finally, another family favorite of ours is shellfish. We love cooking our mussels in a Riesling sauce. This is divine. We do it as a family at least once a month, and I honestly can tell you the more acidic, the crisper that Riesling is, the better the actual mussels taste. It just pairs well. It's like a match meant to be. And my final favorite is creamier cheeses. So this would be things like your spreadable cream cheese. This would be really mild cheeses, like if you're looking for something to sort of complement that mozzarella that's sort of sitting on the side of the plate that you don't quite know what to do with. The Riesling will work very well with it. Those are my final thoughts on Riesling, and hopefully you've learned something a little bit about the wine, one of our favorites. Please subscribe down below, give us some likes, and thank you very much.